Ravi was a careful man. He kept all his papers organized in neat files, labeled and stored in a cabinet in his home office. Bills, receipts, repair records, and letters from the Oakwood Community Association. Everything was there. He believed in doing things the right way because in his experience, doing things right meant you had nothing to fear later. It was a warm Tuesday morning when he stepped outside to collect the mail. The sun was already bright, and the sound of birds filled the quiet street. His neighborhood looked peaceful as always, with trimmed lawns and clean driveways. He opened the small metal mailbox by his front gate and pulled out a stack of envelopes. Most of them were ordinary: a bank statement, a supermarket flyer, a local newspaper. But one envelope made him pause. It had the official stamp and letterhead of the Oakwood Community Association, the HOA that managed the neighborhood. The envelope was thick, and the address printed on it looked serious. He walked back inside, placed the rest of the mail on the counter, and opened the letter. As his eyes moved over the bold black text, his heart began to pound. The first line read, "Violation notice, fine amount, $12,000. Ravi sat down at the dining table and kept reading. The letter claimed that he had replaced his home's front windows without proper approval from the HOA. According to them, this was a direct violation of community guidelines, and he was now required to pay a $12,000 fine within 30 days. Failure to pay, the letter warned, would result in legal action and possible liens on his property. His first reaction was disbelief. He read the letter again slowly, hoping he had misunderstood something, but the words were clear. They were accusing him of breaking the rules 5 years ago. A voice broke his thoughts. What happened? His wife Amina asked as she walked in from the kitchen. She saw the color drain from his face. They're saying I owe $12,000 for installing windows without approval, Ravi said, handing her the letter. Amina's eyes narrowed as she scanned the paper. But you got approval. I remember. You showed me the letter before you started the work. I still have it, Ravi said firmly. 5 years ago, replacing the old windows had been a big expense. They had saved for months before even calling a contractor. Ravi had filled out the HOA's architectural change request form. He had submitted all the details, the style of windows, the color of the frames, and even the catalog page from the manufacturer. Weeks later, the HOA's president at the time, a man named Mr. Turner, had signed the approval letter. With that letter in hand, Ravi had gone ahead with the work. The HOA had never raised any issue in the years since. Not a single complaint. Now, suddenly, they were demanding $12,000 in the days that followed. More letters arrived. Each one was more aggressive than the last. They accused Ravi of ignoring the violation, threatened to take him to court, and warned that the fine could increase with legal fees. When he called the HOA office, the woman on the phone said their records showed no approval letter. She told him if he could not provide proof, the fine would stand. That night, Ravi walked into his home office and pulled open the middle drawer of his filing cabinet. Inside was a folder labeled Home Improvements. He flipped through it until he found the sheet of paper he had been thinking about. It was the original HOA approval letter, dated and signed by Mr. Turner. The black ink was still sharp, the signature neat and clear. Holding it in his hands, Ravi felt his anger grow. He had done everything right, yet they were treating him like he was in the wrong. He showed the letter to Amina. They can't deny this, she said. But Ravi knew it might not be so simple. The HOA was powerful. They had lawyers. And even if he was right, proving it could take months, maybe years. The next morning, he wrote a polite letter back to the HOA. He enclosed a copy of the signed approval and explained the situation. 2 weeks later, their reply arrived. It was short and cold. They claimed the signature on the approval letter was unauthorized and did not count. The fine remained in place. That was the moment Ravi understood this was not just a mistake. It was a battle. Someone in the HOA wanted that money, and they were not going to back down easily. Instead of giving in, Ravi began keeping a detailed record of every communication. He saved every letter, email, and phone note. He even started talking to his neighbors to see if anyone else had faced similar treatment. To his surprise, a few of them had. One man had been fined for a garden shed that had been approved years earlier. Another woman had been told to remove her fence even though the HOA's own rules allowed it. The more Ravi learned, the more convinced he became that this was a pattern. The HOA seemed to use these fines as a way to pressure homeowners into paying money they did no. At night, he and Amina sat at the kitchen table discussing their options. They could pay the fine to make it go away, but that would be surrender. Or they could fight. But fighting would take time, patience, and maybe legal help. Ravi looked again at the signed approval letter. If I give up now, they'll keep doing this to everyone, he said. Amina nodded. Then we fight. It was a decision made not out of anger alone, but out of a quiet sense of justice. Ravi had followed the rules, and he wasn't about to let those rules be twisted against him. He didn't yet know how long the battle would last or how far it would go, but he knew one thing. He was not paying that fine, and so, with a folder of papers under his arm and determination in his heart, he began his journey into the world of HOA politics, a place where truth was often hidden, and where patience could be the sharpest weapon of all. Ravi spent the next few days thinking about his options. The letter from the HOA still sat on the kitchen table, staring at him like a silent challenge. He could not ignore it, and he could not pay it. It was not just about the money anymore. It was about principle. Someone had approved his windows, and now they were demanding thousands of dollars for something he had done the right way. He decided to visit the HOA office in person. Maybe face-to-face communication would help. On a bright Thursday morning, Ravi drove his small blue car down Oakwood Lane. The office was a modest building with a neatly trimmed lawn and a small sign that read Oakwood Community Association. He parked, took a deep breath, and walked inside. A receptionist greeted him with a polite smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm here about a violation notice," Ravi said. "I have the original approval letter from 5 years ago." She typed something into her computer and then looked up. "The manager will see you now. Please wait a moment." After a few minutes, a middle-aged man in a suit came out. He introduced himself as Mr. Lang, the current HOA manager. His expression was formal, and his tone was neutral. "I received a violation notice," Ravi began, handing over a copy of the original approval letter. "This document shows that my window replacement was approved by the board at the time. I do not understand why this fine is being imposed now." Mr. Lang took the paper, adjusted his glasses, and studied it carefully. "I see. Do you know that the previous president is no longer on the board?" He asked. "Yes, I know," Ravi replied. "But that does not change the fact that this was officially approved. It is signed and dated. I followed all the rules." Mr. Lang looked thoughtful, then said, "I will have to review this with the board. You will be contacted once we make a decision." Ravi left the office feeling a mixture of relief and frustration. He had done everything right, and yet he knew that the HOA could drag this process out for months back home. He started researching similar cases. He discovered stories online of other homeowners who had been fined for things that had already been approved. Some of them had fought and won, but only after long legal battles. Some had paid out of fear and regret. Reading these stories strengthened his resolve. A few days later, Ravi received another letter. This time, it was a formal statement from the HOA board. They insisted that the approval letter was invalid because the signature was not verified, and that the fine would remain unless he agreed to pay immediately. Ravi was furious, but he stayed calm. He contacted a local attorney, Mr. Patel, who specialized in community disputes. The attorney listened carefully to Ravi's story and examined the approval letter. "This is a clear case," Mr. Patel said. "You have documented proof that the HOA approved the work. They cannot simply claim the signature is invalid after 5 years. We can fight this." "Do you think it will work?" Ravi asked. "Yes, but it will take time," Mr. Patel replied. "You must be patient and organized. Keep every letter, every email, every note. We will respond formally and demand that they withdraw the fine immediately." Ravi felt a sense of relief. He was not alone in this fight. He followed Mr. Patel's instructions carefully. He drafted a formal response to the HOA, including scanned copies of the original approval letter and photos of the windows, just as they appeared 5 years ago. He also requested a meeting with the board. Weeks passed. The HOA sent a few letters that were polite but firm, insisting that the fine stood. Ravi stayed patient. He knew that frustration could lead to mistakes, and mistakes could cost him the fight. Meanwhile, word began to spread in the neighborhood. A few neighbors who had faced similar fines reached out to him. One woman, Priya, had been fined for painting her house a color approved by the board. Another neighbor, Samir, had been fined for installing solar panels that were approved in writing. They shared their experiences, and Ravi realized this was not just about his house. The HOA seemed to target anyone who had proper documentation, but questioned their authority later. Ravi felt a renewed determination. He was not just fighting for his windows. He was fighting for fairness in the entire community. One evening, Ravi and Amina sat in the living room with a cup of tea. "We can do this," Amina said quietly. "We just have to stay organized and strong." Ravi nodded. "It will take time, but I am ready. I won't let them bully us." As the weeks turned into months, Ravi continued documenting every interaction. Phone calls were logged, letters and emails were saved. He even started writing a timeline of events, noting every date and action taken by both him and the HOA. This timeline became his most important tool. Finally, after 3 months, the HOA agreed to a formal hearing. Ravi and Mr. Patel attended, presenting the approval letter, the timeline, and supporting documents from neighbors who had faced similar situations. The board members looked at the papers, whispered among themselves, and asked questions. Ravi answered calmly, clearly explaining that the windows had been approved and that he had followed all rules. The hearing lasted nearly 2 hours. Ravi felt nervous, but he stayed composed. When it ended, the board promised to review all evidence and make a decision. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Ravi opened it carefully, expecting the worst. Instead, the letter said that the board had reviewed the evidence and agreed that the original approval letter was valid. The $12,000 fine would be withdrawn. Ravi felt a wave of relief. Months of stress and worry had finally ended in justice. But the fight had also taught him something valuable: preparation, patience, and persistence could overcome even powerful opposition. Amina hugged him tightly. "You did it," she said. "You stood up and proved the truth." "Yes," Ravi replied, smiling. "But this is just the beginning. We need to make sure the HOA cannot treat other homeowners like this again." Ravi knew that the experience had changed him. He had learned how to fight for what was right, how to remain patient under pressure, and how to organize evidence to support his case. More importantly, he had shown his neighbors that fairness could prevail. As he looked around his home, at the windows that had caused so much trouble, Ravi realized something. The windows were more than glass and frames. They were a symbol of standing up for what was right, of facing challenges with courage, and of believing that truth and fairness could win even against the odds. Ravi thought the hardest part was over. The HOA had officially acknowledged that the original approval letter for his windows was valid. The $12,000 fine had been withdrawn, and justice had been served. He felt a sense of relief he had not experienced. In months, the letters stopped coming, and the office calls became rare. For the first time in a long while, Ravi and Amina could breathe without the constant tension of worry over the fine. Yet, Ravi did not realize that the fight was far from over. A week after the hearing, he received a thick envelope with no return address, just a plain stamp. He stared at it, puzzled. Who would be sending him mail now? He opened it carefully, and inside, he found a letter from the current HOA president, Mr. Daniels. The letter began formally, but the content surprised Ravi. It stated that after reviewing the situation and considering the legal advice received by the association, the board had decided to offer a settlement. They acknowledged that Ravi had suffered unnecessary stress, wasted time, and had incurred some legal costs due to the delay and the initial demand for payment. As a result, the The Hoa would compensate him with a payment of $75,000. Ravi read the letter several times. He thought he had misread the number. $75,000? That was more than 6 times the original fine. His heart raced as he realized the magnitude of what was being offered. Amina entered the room and saw the letter in his hands. "What is it?" she asked. Ravi looked at her, still processing the words. "They are offering us $75,000 as compensation for everything that happened," he said slowly. Amina gasped. "That is incredible. But why would they pay so much?" Ravi thought about it. The Hoa must have realized that if he pursued legal action further, they could face a lengthy, expensive lawsuit. They had already admitted that the original approval letter was valid. By offering a large settlement, they could resolve the matter quickly and avoid public attention. It was a calculated move, and it worked. The next few days were a whirlwind. Ravi contacted Mr. Patel, his attorney, who reviewed the letter and advised him carefully. "This is a very good offer," Mr. Patel explained. "They are admitting responsibility in a way without making it public. You should accept it. But make sure everything is documented and the check is issued in your name." Ravi felt a mix of excitement and disbelief. He had never imagined that standing up for his rights could result in such a positive outcome. He and Amina made a plan to accept the settlement, ensuring all legal steps were properly followed. A week later, Ravi received a formal contract from the Hoa. The agreement confirmed that upon signing, he would receive a check for $75,000 as compensation for the fines, stress, and legal expenses caused by their actions. Ravi and Mr. Patel reviewed the document thoroughly before signing it. The day the check arrived was a memorable one. Ravi walked to the mailbox with a sense of anticipation he had not felt in years. Inside was a large envelope, heavier than usual. He brought it inside, carefully opened it, and there it was, a check written for $75,000. The signature at the bottom surprised him. It was Mr. Daniels, the current Hoa president. Ravi stared at the check, feeling a mixture of pride, relief, and vindication. Years of patience, careful documentation, and persistence had paid off. He looked at Amina, who was smiling with pride. "We did it," she said. "You never gave up, and look at the result." Ravi carefully placed the check on the dining table. It represented more than money. It represented justice, patience, and standing up for what was right. The entire experience had been stressful, exhausting, and at times frustrating, but now it had a happy ending. Word of Ravi's victory spread slowly through the neighborhood. Neighbors who had heard about the initial $12,000 fine were amazed when they learned of the settlement. Many reached out to congratulate him. Priya, the neighbor fined for painting her house, called him. "I can't believe they offered you $75,000, she said. "You really showed them what it means to fight with proof and patience." Ravi smiled. "It wasn't easy, but standing up for yourself is important. If you know you are right, you must not give up." Even Mr. Patel was impressed. "Few people see such a large settlement from an Hoa dispute. You did everything correctly and stayed organized. That made all the difference." Ravi and Amina decided to use part of the settlement wisely. They paid off some debts, improved their home further, and saved for their children's future. But more than anything, they felt a sense of peace. The ordeal had strengthened their confidence and taught them the value of patience, persistence, and proper documentation. Despite the joy of the settlement, Ravi could not forget the stress the Hoa had caused over the years. He wanted to ensure that others would not go through the same experience. He attended community meetings, spoke to neighbors, and shared his story carefully, emphasizing the importance of keeping records and standing up for oneself. The Hoa, for its part, quietly adjusted some of its internal procedures to avoid similar mistakes in the future. The board was more cautious about approving requests, documenting signatures, and responding to homeowners. Ravi's case had set an example that even a powerful organization could be held accountable. When mistakes were made. As weeks passed, Ravi looked around his home, thinking about the journey he had been through, from the shock of the $12,000 fine to the surprise of a $75,000 settlement. It had been a long, emotional path, but he felt proud. He had followed the rules, gathered proof, stayed patient, and ultimately, justice had prevailed. One evening, Ravi and Amina sat on their porch, watching the sunset over their neighborhood. The windows that had caused so much trouble gleamed in the fading light, a reminder of the challenges they had overcome. Ravi held Amina's hand. "We faced a lot, but we came out stronger," he said. "Yes," Amina agreed, "and we showed that standing up for what is right can lead to unexpected rewards." Ravi smiled. He had never imagined that a fight over windows would teach him so much. He realized that life often presented challenges that seemed unfair, but with patience, careful planning, and persistence, even the most difficult situations could have a positive outcome. The $75.00 check was more than money. It was a symbol of resilience, determination, and the power of truth. Ravi knew that whenever he faced obstacles in the future, he could remember this experience and trust in his ability to handle challenges with courage and patience. The story of Ravi and the HOA became a quiet inspiration in the neighborhood. People admired his determination, and it encouraged others to document approvals, ask questions when rules seemed unclear, and never give up when they knew they were right. Ravi's life returned to normal, but he had changed. He had learned that standing up for justice required more than anger. It required calm, methodical action, and a willingness to face challenges head-on. The experience made him more confident, more patient, and more aware of the value of preparation and proof. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ravi looked at his windows, feeling a sense of victory. What had once been a source of stress and conflict had become a symbol of triumph. He had fought a battle that seemed impossible and had emerged stronger. The journey had been long, but the reward was worth every effort. Ravi knew that this experience would stay with him forever, not because of the money, but because it had proven that fairness and truth could prevail, even against powerful opposition. After receiving the $75,000 settlement, Ravi felt a sense of calm that he had not experienced in years. The pressure and stress from the HOA's demands had dominated his life for so long that he was not sure how to adjust to freedom. The letter and the check were gone from the kitchen table, and a new chapter was beginning. Ravi and Amina spent the first few days celebrating quietly. They made a simple dinner together and toasted to patience, persistence, and fairness. "We finally have peace," Amina said, smiling as she poured tea into 2 cups. "Yes," Ravi replied, "but it is more than peace. We showed that standing up for what is right can lead to results." Ravi decided to use part of the settlement wisely. He paid off debts that had weighed heavily on their family finances. Some of the money went toward home improvements, like painting the walls and fixing small repairs around the house. He also set aside a portion for their children's education, wanting to secure their future. Despite the excitement and relief, Ravi did not forget the lessons he had learned. The months of letters, calls, and meetings had taught him how important it was to document everything and remain calm under pressure. He realized that these skills were not only useful for dealing with the HOA, but for life in general. In the following weeks, the neighborhood began to notice the change in Ravi. His quiet determination and careful approach had earned him respect. Neighbors who had once avoided confrontation with the HOA started coming to him for advice. Priya, the neighbor who had been fined for painting her house, approached him one afternoon. "I heard about your settlement," she said. "I want to thank you. You showed me that it is possible to stand up for ourselves without giving in to unfair demands." Ravi smiled. "You have to stay organized, keep records, and never give up. That is the key." Even Samir, the neighbor fined for solar panels, came to seek guidance. Ravi helped him gather his paperwork and explained how to present his case. Clearly, Ravi felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that his experience could help others avoid similar stress. Ravi also noticed changes within the HOA. The board appeared more careful and respectful when communicating with homeowners. They had improved their documentation process and made sure approvals were clearly recorded. The case with Ravi had shown them the consequences of ignoring proper records and the importance of fairness. Despite these improvements, Ravi remained cautious. He continued attending occasional HOA meetings, observing how decisions were made and how residents interacted with the board. He wanted to make sure that no one else would face the same challenges he had endured. At home, Ravi and Amina enjoyed simple pleasures that they had neglected during the stressful months. They took long walks in the neighborhood, talked to friends, and spent more time with their children. The windows that had once caused conflict now reflected sunlight into the house, symbolizing clarity and hope. Ravi often thought about the journey he had gone through. He remembered the initial shock of receiving the $12,000 fine and the weeks of uncertainty and frustration. He remembered the careful collection of documents, the conversations with his attorney, and the long hours spent preparing for the hearing. All of it had seemed overwhelming at the time, but now it was a source of pride. The settlement itself had brought unexpected opportunities. Ravi and Amina were able to consider small investments that they had never thought possible. They began planning a family trip, something they had postponed for years. They also joined local community groups, contributing time and energy to projects that improved the neighborhood. One afternoon, Ravi received a call from Mr. Patel, his attorney. Ravi, the HOA board has reached out to thank you, he said. They want to acknowledge that your case helped them improve their processes and prevent future conflicts. They are offering you a small advisory role if you are interested. Ravi thought for a moment. He had never wanted recognition or a formal position, but the idea of helping the community in a meaningful way appealed to him. I will consider it, he said. I want to make sure fairness is maintained. Word of Ravi's story continued to spread quietly. New homeowners in Oakwood Lane were told about the importance of approvals, signatures, and careful records. Many looked to Ravi as a guide, someone who had navigated a difficult challenge with patience and intelligence. Despite the positive changes, Ravi never took his victory for granted. He continued to check important documents, kept copies of approvals, and remained involved enough to ensure that the HOA acted transparently. His experience had taught him that vigilance and preparation were just as important as courage and patience. Ravi and Amina often discussed the impact of the settlement on their lives. It changed everything, Amina said one evening. Not just the money, but how we see challenges. We can handle anything now. Yes, Ravi agreed, and we can help others face challenges too. That is a reward in itself. In the months that followed, life returned to a peaceful rhythm. Ravi worked on his home projects, spent quality time with his family, and helped neighbors navigate minor HOA issues. He also kept the original approval letter safely in a special folder, a reminder of the struggle he had overcome and the importance of proof and patience. The windows, once a source of conflict, now symbolized resilience and clarity. They reflected sunlight into the living room each morning, reminding Ravi and Amina that challenges could be overcome when approached with courage, organization, and determination. Ravi also noticed a shift in the neighborhood atmosphere. Residents were more confident in addressing minor disputes, asking questions when rules seemed unclear, and documenting approvals properly. The community had learned an important lesson through his experience, that fairness and persistence could lead to positive outcomes. One evening, as Ravi and Amina sat on their porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees, Ravi reflected on the journey. He had faced a powerful organization, stayed patient for months, and ultimately received justice and a remarkable settlement. The experience had taught him more than he could have imagined. We did it together, Amina said, squeezing his hand. We faced something difficult and came out stronger. Ravi nodded. Yes, and we helped others too. That is even more important than the money or the victory itself. As darkness settled over the neighborhood, Ravi felt a deep sense of peace. The challenges had been real. The stress had been intense, but the lessons he had learned and the changes he had inspired were lasting. He knew that he could face future challenges with the same patience, organization, and courage. The The story of Ravi in the windows had ended, but its impact on the community and on Ravi's life was only beginning. He had discovered the power of truth, persistence, and careful preparation. He had seen how standing up for what was right could inspire others and bring lasting change. Ravi looked at the windows one last time that night, reflecting on the journey. They were more than glass and frames. They were a symbol of resilience, patience, and the quiet strength that comes from doing what is right. Life after victory was not just about the settlement. It was about the lessons, the changes, and the ability to face the future with confidence and hope. Ravi felt ready for anything. Life after the settlement felt peaceful for Ravi and Amina. The stress from the $12,000 fine had faded, and the $75,000 check had brought them relief and freedom. Yet, Ravi understood that challenges could appear unexpectedly even after a victory. The months of calm that followed were a chance to reflect and rebuild. But they also revealed new obstacles that tested his patience and resilience. One morning, Ravi received an email from a neighbor named Nisha. She was anxious and confused. The Hoa had sent her a notice claiming that her backyard shed violated community rules, despite her having approval documents that matched the Hoa guidelines. Nisha had heard about Ravi's experience and hoped he could help. Ravi read the email carefully and felt a strong urge to assist. He remembered how overwhelming it had been to face the HOA alone and understood Nisha's fear. He replied, offering to guide her through the process and share the strategies he had used to resolve his own dispute. Over the next few days, Ravi met with Nisha in her backyard. He examined her documents, photos, and emails with attention to detail. Everything here seems to be in order, Ravi said. You followed all the rules. Now we just need to organize everything clearly and present it to the board professionally. Together, they drafted a letter summarizing her situation. Ravi suggested including a timeline of events, copies of all approval letters, and photos of the shed as it stood. He also encouraged Nisha to remain calm and polite in all communication, emphasizing that a respectful approach could make a significant difference. While helping Nisha, Ravi received a call from Priya, another neighbor. Priya's case had been resolved after her painting dispute, but she had noticed new enforcement actions from the HOA that seemed inconsistent. Ravi, I think the Hoa is still creating unnecessary fines for minor issues, she said. Some residents are scared to question them. Ravi listened carefully. He realized that the problem went beyond individual disputes. The Hoa had gained a reputation for being strict and sometimes unfair, which created fear and tension in the neighborhood. Ravi felt a responsibility to help, but he also understood that he could not control everything. Patience and organization remained the key. The following week, Ravi attended a neighborhood meeting. Several residents had gathered to discuss their concerns, and the board members were present as well. Ravi spoke calmly, sharing his story and explaining how proper documentation and respectful communication could prevent unnecessary fines. You must know your rights, Ravi said. Keep copies of approvals, photos, and emails. If a fine appears that seems unfair, address it calmly and clearly. Being organized gives you strength and credibility. The audience listened attentively. Some residents nodded, taking notes. Others asked questions about the process and how to handle disputes effectively. Ravi felt a sense of purpose. His own struggle had taught him valuable lessons, and now he could use that experience to guide others. After the meeting, Ravi returned home feeling satisfied, but he also sensed that new challenges were approaching. The Hoa, while more careful than before, was still an organization with rules, procedures, and interpretations that could create conflict. Ravi knew that vigilance was necessary to ensure fairness for everyone. One afternoon, a letter arrived for Ravi from the Hoa. It was addressed to all homeowners, announcing a review of all previous approvals for renovations, landscaping, and modifications. The letter stated that the board wanted to ensure compliance with updated guidelines. Ravi read it carefully and recognized the tone. It was polite but firm, and it implied that some approvals might be questioned again. Ravi shared. The letter with Amina. It seems they are reviewing everything again, he said. We need to be ready if they question any past approvals. Amina nodded. We have the proof for our windows, and we can help our neighbors with theirs. We just need to stay organized. Ravi began compiling all his past approvals, letters, and photos. He also reached out to neighbors who had requested his advice, helping them organize their documents in case the board raised questions. He felt a mixture of responsibility and determination. Even though the settlement had resolved his personal dispute, he could not ignore the possibility of further challenges affecting others. As weeks passed, Ravi noticed subtle signs of tension. Within the neighborhood, some residents were anxious, unsure if their approvals would be questioned. A few approached him for guidance, and he worked patiently to reassure them. He emphasized preparation, calm communication, and patience at the same time. Ravi received a surprising call from Mr. Daniels, the current HOA president. Mr. Daniels asked if Ravi could meet with the board to provide input on improving communication and record keeping. Ravi agreed, understanding that this was an opportunity to prevent future disputes. During the meeting, Ravi suggested clear documentation procedures, regular updates to homeowners about approvals, and consistent communication when rules were updated. The board listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions. Ravi spoke calmly and confidently, sharing the lessons he had learned from his own experience. After the meeting, Mr. Daniels shook his hand. Your insights are valuable, he said. We want to avoid situations like yours in the future. Thank you for helping us see things differently. Ravi left the meeting feeling hopeful. The HOA was willing to learn and improve in his own. Experience had become a tool for positive change. He realized that even victories could lead to new responsibilities, but those responsibilities could also create opportunities to make a difference. One evening, Ravi and Amina sat together on their porch, reflecting on the events of the past months. It feels like the neighborhood is changing for the better, Amina said. People are more confident, and the board seems more careful. Yes, Ravi replied, but change takes time. We must remain patient and help where we can. Our experience gave us strength, and we can use it to help others. Ravi also thought about how much he had grown. The battle over the windows had tested his patience, persistence, and problem-solving skills. He had learned to remain calm under pressure, organize information carefully, and communicate effectively. These skills were now valuable not only for disputes but for life in general. As the weeks turned into months, Ravi's role in the community continued quietly. He helped neighbors prepare for approvals, guided them on disputes, and attended meetings when necessary. He had become a trusted voice, someone who could provide advice and calm assurance during times of uncertainty. Through all these experiences, Ravi kept a sense of balance. He continued to focus on his family, his home, and his own personal growth. He understood that while challenges would always arise, they could be managed with preparation, patience, and thoughtful action. The windows that had once caused so much stress now reflected sunlight into his home, a symbol of clarity, perseverance, and the ability to overcome obstacles. Ravi felt proud of what he had accomplished, not just for himself, but for his family and neighbors. Life after victory was not without challenges, but Ravi had learned how to face them with confidence and calm. The experiences that had once seemed overwhelming had become tools, lessons that he could use to guide himself and others through future obstacles. Ravi smiled as he looked around his home. The neighborhood was quieter now, and the sense of fear and tension had decreased. People were learning to stand up for themselves respectfully and effectively. He knew that challenges would continue to appear, but he was ready. With patience, organization, and determination, he could face anything that came his way. The lessons of the past had strengthened him, and the community around him had begun to grow stronger as well. Ravi realized that victories, even unexpected ones like his settlement, were only the beginning. True success came from using that experience to create lasting positive change for oneself and others. Ravi had grown comfortable with his role in the community. The The stress of the $12,000 fine was long behind him, and the $75,000 settlement had brought relief and opportunities. He had helped neighbors, attended meetings, and advised others on documentation and communication. Life had returned to a peaceful rhythm. Yet Ravi knew from experience that unexpected challenges could appear at any moment. One morning, Ravi received a call from Mr. Patel, his attorney. The tone was serious. "Ravi, I have news," Mr. Patel said. "The HOA has contacted me with a new proposal. They want to discuss a final settlement regarding the 5-year dispute over your windows." Ravi was puzzled. "We already received $75,000. What more could there be?" Mr. Patel explained that the HOA's new board members wanted to formally close the case in writing and provide an official acknowledgement of error. They were offering an additional amount as compensation for the stress, time, and inconvenience Ravi had endured. Ravi felt a mix of surprise and cautious optimism. He had already received a large settlement, but this was an opportunity to finalize everything officially and ensure the record was clear for the future. He agreed to meet the HOA president, Mr. Daniels, and some board members. The meeting took place in the HOA office, a clean, modest building with large windows letting in sunlight. Mr. Daniels greeted Ravi warmly. "We want to resolve everything completely," he said. "Your case has highlighted areas where we need improvement. We want to make this right." Ravi listened carefully as Mr. Daniels explained the proposal. The HOA offered an additional compensation of $20,000, a formal letter acknowledging the validity of the original approval, and a commitment to implement better record keeping and communication procedures. Ravi felt a wave of relief. The gesture was not only fair, but also symbolic. It showed that the organization had recognized its mistakes and was taking steps to prevent similar issues in the future. Mr. Daniels handed Ravi the agreement to review. Ravi examined it carefully. With Mr. Patel by his side, every detail was clear: the additional compensation, the acknowledgement letter, and the measures the HOA would take to improve transparency. After a few hours of discussion, Ravi signed the agreement. The room was quiet, yet it felt like a celebration. He had turned a difficult situation into a positive outcome for himself, his family, and the community. Returning home, Ravi placed the new letter and the additional check on the dining table. Amina entered the room and looked at the documents. "This is remarkable," she said. "You handled everything with patience and intelligence. Look at the results." Ravi smiled. "It wasn't easy, but we stayed organized and calm. That made all the difference." Over the following weeks, Ravi noticed that the HOA had begun to implement changes. Board meetings were more transparent, approvals were documented carefully, and residents were informed promptly about updates. The neighborhood felt more secure, and residents were less anxious about potential fines or violations. Ravi also continued helping neighbors like Nisha, Priya, and Samir. He shared his experience, offering guidance and support. People began to trust him as someone who could navigate challenges with patience and clarity. His reputation grew quietly, but it was meaningful. He had not sought recognition, yet his actions had inspired others. One afternoon, Ravi received an invitation to a neighborhood celebration organized by the HOA. The event was meant to acknowledge improvements in communication and record keeping, and Mr. Daniels wanted Ravi to attend as a guest of honor. Ravi felt honored and agreed to attend with Amina at the celebration. Mr. Daniels spoke publicly about the changes in the HOA and the lessons learned from Ravi's case. He praised Ravi for his patience, persistence, and willingness to work with the board to improve processes. The residents applauded, and Ravi felt a deep sense of satisfaction. After the event, several neighbors approached him to express their gratitude. Priya said, "Your actions showed us that fairness can prevail. Thank you for helping all of us." Nisha added, "I was so nervous about my shed issue, but your guidance made everything clear and manageable. I am grateful for your support." Ravi smiled and replied, "We all learn from each other. I am glad my experience helped you. The important thing is to stay calm, organized, and respectful when dealing with challenges. Life gradually returned to a steady, comfortable rhythm. Ravi and Amina focused on family, home improvements, and personal goals. The windows that had once caused so much trouble now symbolized clarity, patience, and resilience, yet Ravi knew that life would continue to present challenges. The difference was that he had learned how to face them with confidence and strategy. He understood that stress and obstacles were temporary, and that careful planning, documentation, and calm communication could lead to positive outcomes. One morning, as Ravi sipped tea on the porch, he reflected on the journey. He had faced an unexpected $12,000 fine, navigated a complex dispute with the HOA, received a $75,000 settlement, and finally reached a formal closure with additional compensation. He had turned a negative experience into a lesson, a source of personal growth, and an opportunity to help others. Amina joined him on the porch, holding a cup of tea. "You have come a long way," she said softly. "This experience taught you so much about patience, persistence, and fairness." Ravi nodded. "Yes, and it also taught us that standing up for what is right benefits not only ourselves, but the community as well." We turned the challenge into something positive. As they looked at the neighborhood, Ravi noticed how calm and organized it had become. Residents were more confident, discussions were constructive, and the HOA was more transparent. The changes were subtle but meaningful, and Ravi felt proud to have played a role in shaping them. The experience had also strengthened Ravi personally. He had developed patience, improved his problem-solving skills, and learned the value of preparation and documentation. He had discovered that even powerful organizations could be held accountable when one acted with knowledge, persistence, and respect. In the following months, Ravi continued to support neighbors, attend HOA meetings occasionally, and ensure that fairness remained a priority. The windows that had sparked the long dispute now reflected sunlight into his home, reminding him daily of resilience, justice, and the rewards of careful, determined action. Ravi knew that challenges would continue to arise in life. Some would be small, others more complex, but he had learned how to face them calmly and effectively. He also knew that his experience could serve as guidance and inspiration for others, showing that standing up for fairness and truth could lead to positive outcomes, even in difficult circumstances. As the sun set one evening, Ravi and Amina sat together on the porch, feeling content. The journey had been long and sometimes stressful, but the lessons, personal growth, and improvements in the community made it worthwhile. The windows were more than glass and frames. They symbolized justice, perseverance, and the power of truth. Ravi felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. He had turned conflict into opportunity, stress into learning, and personal victory into a source of guidance for others. Life after the dispute was peaceful, meaningful, and full of potential. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he was prepared. Patience, persistence, organization, and calm communication would guide him through any obstacles. The experience had transformed not only his neighborhood, but also himself, leaving him ready for whatever life might bring next. Life in Oakwood Lane had transformed gradually, quietly, but the changes were significant. Ravi's dispute over the windows, once a source of frustration and stress, had left a lasting mark on the community. The lessons he had learned and the actions he had taken had rippled outward, creating a stronger, more fair, and more confident neighborhood. Ravi and Amina had settled back into their daily routines. Mornings began with tea on the porch, followed by work and family time. Yet there was a difference now, a sense of calm and confidence that had been absent during the months of struggle. The windows that had once caused so much trouble now reflected sunlight into the living room, casting warm patterns on the walls. Every time Ravi glanced at them, he was reminded of patience, persistence, and the rewards of standing up for what is right. The HOA had changed as well. The board had implemented stricter documentation procedures, clear communication policies, and a more transparent approval system. Homeowners were now informed promptly when decisions were made, and records were carefully maintained. The fear of unfair fines had decreased significantly, and residents approached the board with confidence. Knowing they had proper evidence to support their requests, Ravi continued to support his neighbors. But his role had evolved. He was no longer simply a homeowner fighting a personal battle. He had become a mentor and a guide. Residents frequently sought his advice, not only about approvals and rules, but also about approaching disputes calmly and effectively. Priya, Nisha, and Samir had all turned to him at different times, and he always offered guidance with patience and clarity. One Saturday morning, Ravi organized a small community workshop. He invited homeowners to learn about proper documentation, communication with the HOA, and strategies for handling disputes. The workshop was informal but informative. Ravi shared his personal experience, explained the importance of proof and records, and emphasized the value of calm, respectful communication. Disputes can happen to anyone. Ravi explained, the key is to stay organized, stay calm, and address issues respectfully. That approach protects you and improves the community. The residents listened attentively, taking notes and asking questions. Many expressed gratitude, saying they felt more confident about handling potential conflicts. Ravi felt a sense of fulfillment. His experience, once a source of frustration, had become a tool to help others navigate challenges. Life continued peacefully, but occasionally small challenges appeared. A new homeowner had questions about landscaping guidelines, another had a minor approval delay, and a few residents were unclear about updated rules. Each time, Ravi stepped in calmly, offering guidance and reassurance. He had learned that helping others was not just about resolving problems, it was about creating a culture of fairness. Knowledge and patience died at home. Ravi and Amina reflected on the journey they had gone through. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the porch, Amina said, "It feels amazing to see how far we have come, not just for us, but for the entire neighborhood." Ravi nodded, thinking about the long months of letters, meetings, and uncertainty. "Yes, it was a difficult journey," he said, "but it taught us patience, persistence, and the value of standing up for what is right. And we turned our struggle into something meaningful for others." Their children played quietly nearby, unaware of the long battle their parents had faced. Yet Ravi knew that the lessons of fairness, preparation, and patience were now part of the family's values. He hoped that one day his children would remember these lessons and use them to navigate challenges in their own lives. Over time, the neighborhood became stronger and more connected. Residents communicated openly, shared information, and supported one another. The culture of fear and uncertainty that had existed during the initial dispute was gone. Ravi's experience had created a model for constructive conflict resolution. And fair treatment. Ravi also reflected on how the financial settlement had impacted his life. The $75,000 check, followed by the additional $20,000, had provided freedom and security. It allowed him to invest in the home, support the family, and even plan for future goals. But more importantly, it had given him confidence, the assurance that standing up for truth and fairness could produce meaningful results. One morning, Ravi received a message from Mr. Daniels, the HOA president. The board wanted to formally acknowledge Ravi's contribution to improving community processes. They invited him to a small gathering to honor his efforts. Ravi agreed, feeling proud but modest. He knew that the real reward was the positive change in the neighborhood and the confidence of the residents. At the gathering, Mr. Daniels spoke warmly. "Ravi's patience, persistence, and dedication have shown us the importance of fairness and transparency. His experience has inspired us to improve our procedures and support homeowners more effectively." Ravi smiled, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The acknowledgement was meaningful, but the real impact was visible every day, in the confident faces of neighbors, in the organized approvals, and in the respectful communication between homeowners and the board. Life returned to normal, yet Ravi noticed subtle changes in himself. He was more patient when dealing with challenges, more organized in planning, and more confident in communication. The experience with the windows and the hoe had shaped his character in ways he had never anticipated. Even small moments brought reflections of the journey. When a neighbor thanked him for guidance, when a child asked about fairness, or when he reviewed documents at home, Ravi was reminded that every challenge, no matter how difficult, could be turned into a learning opportunity. Ravi and Amina often talked about the journey with gratitude. "We faced a long, unexpected challenge," Amina said, "but we turned it into something positive." "That is a rare experience," Ravi agreed. "Yes, and it is even more valuable that it helped others." Standing up for what is right is not only about personal victory, it is about creating a better environment for everyone. The windows that had caused so much stress were now a symbol of resilience, patience, and fairness. Every morning, sunlight poured through them, reminding Ravi and Amina of the journey they had endured and the lessons they had learned. As the months turned into years, Ravi's story became part of the community's shared history. New residents learned about the importance of documentation, calm communication, and persistence. The culture of the neighborhood had shifted, creating a stronger, more confident, and supportive community. Ravi understood that life would continue to present challenges, but he felt prepared. The journey with the windows and the hoe had shown him that patience, organization, and persistence could overcome obstacles. It had also shown him that personal victories could lead to collective benefits, inspiring others and creating lasting change. One evening, Ravi sat on the porch, watching the sunset over Oakwood Lane. Amina joined him, and they held hands in silence, feeling content. The neighborhood was calm, the residents confident, and the hoe more transparent and fair. Their home was peaceful, and their family was safe and happy. Ravi reflected on the long journey. The shock of the $12,000 fine, the months of preparation, the $75,000 settlement, the additional compensation, and the positive changes in the community. He realized that every challenge, no matter how stressful, carried the potential for growth, learning, and meaningful impact. With a quiet smile, Ravi looked at the windows one last time that evening. They were more than glass and frames. They were symbols of resilience, patience, truth, and the power of standing up for what is right. Ravi knew that the lessons he had learned and the changes he had inspired would remain long after the dispute was over. His journey had transformed him, his family, and his community, leaving a legacy of patience, fairness, and quiet strength. Life in Oakwood Lane was no longer defined by fear of fines or uncertainty. It was defined by fairness, respect, and the shared understanding that truth and persistence could overcome even the most challenging obstacles. Ravi had not only won a personal battle, but had helped create a community where fairness and transparency were valued, respected, and practiced every day.